I'm still unsure what I could have done differently to avoid this situation. What steps could I have taken to prevent my current predicament? I was fairly certain my choices were limited. How do you convince an adult that their actions could potentially destroy everything they cherish? Coercion isn't the answer. You can only watch helplessly and deal with the aftermath. That's where I found myself. My wife, who I love dearly, believed this would strengthen us and show the depth and significance of our love. I saw it as a testament to her lack of affection, which made her seem selfish and indulgent. I'm just an average guy leading an ordinary life. I'm not a super resilient, tender romantic hero like anyone else. I have flaws. I often focus too much on myself, work excessively, and occasionally express unwarranted anger. It's not intentional, it just happens. I'm only human. Life, work, and events often disrupt the flow. Amanda, I've been married for 19 years and we enjoy intimacy a couple of times a week. It's always been enjoyable and we've always wanted more when we had the chance. Hobbies like football, good books, or TV shows, along with our parental responsibilities, sometimes took up our time, but we always made time when we could. Or when desire struck, our marriage sailed smoothly, our finances improved, and our daughters Olivia and Audra, aged 16 and 14, added joy to our lives. While I may have considered myself ordinary, they were something extraordinary. Life was flourishing until my wife entertained unconventional ideas. She labeled our bed life as plain vanilla and insisted on spicing things up, despite my satisfaction. I agreed to play along initially, as it involved experimenting with different positions, which I found enjoyable due to my athleticism and being in good shape. However, the novelty wore off after a few times, and then came the phase of role-playing. I couldn't work out where this idea had come from. Maybe it was something I'd read in a magazine or seen on TV. It was fun for about 3 times, but it got a bit impractical. I was trying to concentrate on a hot woman while maintaining a Leonardo DiCaprio character or remembering she was Scarlett Johansson. It was tricky. I told her I wasn't going to continue, and she suddenly seemed unhappy. She asked me when I'd last been on a date. I told her it was just the previous Friday, when I'd taken her to that Italian place she'd wanted to try. We went to the movies and her mom looked after the girls overnight. She reminded me that she didn't mean she asked how long it had been since I'd been on a date with someone else. I asked if she was accusing me of something. She quickly assured me she wasn't and wondered if I remembered the name of the last girl I'd been on a date with. I confirmed it was Donna and that it had been about 2 weeks ago. After I met her, we had a big argument about that date. She asked if I ever missed it, and I laughed and said no. I recalled how awful the whole dating thing was, not the date itself, which was pretty good. I mean, there was the whole working up the nerve to ask a girl out, worrying about being shot down, awkward first conversations. It was pretty traumatic. It was pretty traumatic for her, and she was absolutely terrified. She then asked what had brought this on. I explained that I was just wondering if she ever felt like she'd like to go out on a date with someone else. She assured me that she had never felt like that. She recalled being extremely upset when I went out with Donna, reminding me that she wanted us to be exclusive. She told me she wanted us to be exclusive, and I agreed, saying that I wanted the same. I added that if I felt differently, I wouldn't have asked her to marry me. Being married, I explained, means you don't go on dates with people other than your spouse. She dropped the subject, and I didn't hear anything about it for a while. A month later, it was a Friday night and we'd just finished making love. There were no role-playing games or gimmicks involved. It was just us, a man and his wife, enjoying each other's company. I came twice and she climaxed half a dozen times. We lay there in post-pleasure bliss. Then she brought up something that disrupted the mood. Amanda said that CBRA was looking at me tonight and suggested that she wanted me to ask her to dance. CBRA is a friend from Amanda's workplace. I told Amanda that it was flattering, but that I only wanted to dance with her. She said that she had told CBRA that she wouldn't be jealous if I asked her to dance with me. I said it was kind of her, but I didn't think I'd ask CBR to dance. Amanda then asked if she'd be jealous if I danced with someone else. I tried to joke that her brother would be okay, but she didn't find it funny. She said she asked if I'd ever danced with guys who asked nicely and kept their hands where they belong. She also asked if there was someone at the event I wanted to dance with. I told her I didn't remember anyone asking me, and she accepted my response, saying she was just wondering. I had no clue where this was headed, but I wasn't going to let it bother me. I wasn't sure if I could sleep, so I got up and went to the den to play a video game. She came into the room and watched me for a moment, but I didn't look at her. She went back to bed, and I joined her once she was asleep. Everything was quiet for 2 months until Angela's promotion party. At the White Rhino with a great band, we all sat in a big circular booth and Amanda was talking to CBR Corwin. She said that CBR wanted to dance and asked if I could be a gentleman and dance with her. I remembered a conversation from 2 months ago and found myself in an awkward position while valuing CBRs. I wasn't keen on dancing with her, but I wasn't sure how to gracefully decline. I enjoyed dancing, but I wasn't confident in my abilities, especially compared to Kbra, who moved gracefully like a big cat. The prospect of her lush body against mine raised concerns, but I wasn't sure how to handle it. I felt there was no good way out, so I stood up and said I thought they were playing our song. Kbra joined me, her brown thighs visible below the short blue dress. As the song ended, the band started a slow number, and I wondered why now. Zebra fit against me seamlessly, and I could feel her bust against my chest. Her black curls were almost covering my face, and she smelled nice. When she looked up at me, her big brown eyes were like liquid pools, and her teeth flashed white against her dusky complexion. She wasn't a dark black girl, she was more like a coffee with cream. After the dance, Kbra expressed gratitude, mentioning that I said I wouldn't mind dancing with her. I gave her a compliment about her dancing skills, but I also told her that I did mind. I said that while I liked her a lot and considered her the sweetest girl I knew, dancing with her wasn't a good idea for me. She giggled and told me I was safe with her. She expressed love and acknowledged. She said that if I weren't married, she'd be all over me. She emphasized the importance of friendship and suggested we just enjoy that one dance. I gave her a little squeeze and we finished the song when we got back to the booth. Amanda wasn't there. I looked around and spotted her black and white dress. She was on the floor with some young Nordic-looking guy laughing up into his face and his hands were lower than they should have been. I saw her on the floor with some young guy from the Nordic region laughing up into his face, and his hands were lower than they should have been. She noticed me looking for her and smiled, shooting me a wave. I was annoyed, to say the least. She'd set me off with Zebra so she could dance with that idiot. I threw a couple of 20s on the table and I started walking towards the exit, and Zebra watched me halfway to the door, then came running after me. I stopped and she was a bit out of breath, asking where I was going. I told her that we were being played, and that Amanda had been talking about dating other people and asking me if I ever thought about it. I think this was a test. She set me up by getting me to dance with her, which gave her an excuse to dance with Romeo inside. She asked what I was doing and if I was just going to leave Amanda there. I told her I intended to leave her. She grabbed my arm, which felt like a bit of a heel, and apologized. I reassured her, saying I didn't like being played around with. She asked me to take her back to my house so she could get her car. We were almost home when my phone buzzed, but I ignored it. Zebra gave me a look when her phone rang and she answered it. She told Amanda they were almost at my house and explained that it wasn't her idea. She rode with us and wasn't. Zebra warned Amanda not to put her in that position and ended the call. She then told me that Amanda wanted me to go back and get her. I said I'd prefer a wife who didn't play stupid games, sighing and questioning where this had come from. Zebra explained that it was Mar from work. She'd been talking about having an open marriage, saying it made their life better. She and her husband Herb hardly talked and spent their time trying to involve their friends. Amanda fell for it and Kbra believed she was trying to set us up. I was surprised when Kbra mentioned that Amanda knew she loved me. She said that she'd always been attracted to me. I was pretty taken aback and apologized for the awkward situation. Bra said that she found me gorgeous, but that she was a one-woman kind of guy and not good at sharing toys. She reassured me, saying that she had nothing to do with Amanda's actions. I got the chance to dance with my dream man, and I didn't regret it. I told her I'd let her know what happened, and she left in her car, going into the house. I thought for a moment, then got my stuff from the master bathroom and moved it to the one in the guest room. I also got my work. I put the items there and locked the door. I went to sleep, probably because of the drinks I'd had. I was partially awakened by the slamming door downstairs and footsteps echoing in the hallway outside the bedroom door. The doorknob twisted a few times, followed by a tap on the door. I heard Amanda whispering in a cautious tone, asking the girls nearby not to disturb the sleeping girls. The tapping and whispering continued for about 10 minutes before her footsteps retreated to our bedroom, or what used to be ours. Strangely, I found myself disliking the bed in the guest room. I went to the bedroom in an attempt to slip away before she woke up. Perhaps it was a coward's plan, but I failed. She descended the stairs while I packed files into my briefcase. She sputtered, clearly angry, questioning what was wrong with me. I suggested that maybe she should be asking herself that question. Her voice rose as she asked what that was supposed to mean. I picked up my briefcase, stating that everything I did was in reaction to what she did. I expressed not wanting to look at her right now, emphasizing how close she was to making me permanently angry. I instructed her to get her we need to act together and make sure we've covered all her points. I'll be home soon, so let's get this sorted. I said I'd pick up the girls and take them to my mom's house to sort things out. Her face went pale and she said she had no idea what I was talking about. She suggested there might be something planned for the night. I told her it was up to her. I said if she wants to fix things, she needs to be ready and stop making excuses. I added that if she's happy with things as they are, she can do whatever she wants. I'll let you know when I'm home. I asked her to move her stuff into the spare room because I liked my bed, and made it clear she wasn't welcome in the same bed as me. She got a bit defensive, but I left her there and went to work. I picked up the girls from school and they were happy to go to Graham's for the evening. I told Mom that Amanda and I were having some problems and needed some time to ourselves. She hugged me and said she loved me. I was grateful not to have to answer a bunch of questions. Amanda was there when I got home. She'd made cookies and a plate of them, and there was a cup of coffee waiting for me. She gave me a quick hug, kissed my cheek, and sat down on the sofa next to me. I helped myself to a cookie, oatmeal with chocolate chips, and a cup of coffee. It seemed like we were off to a good start, and I didn't want to ruin all this amicability. I addressed Amanda, expressing my disapproval of her actions. I told her that what she did was not only hurtful to me, but also embarrassing for both of us and disrespectful to C, who was supposed to be her friend. She had difficulty making eye contact and apologized for her actions. I realized that I shouldn't have handled the situation like that. I'd intended to open up communication with her, as she'd consistently shut me down before. I considered this approach to be a way for her to consider alternative perspectives in response to my question about possibilities. Amanda hesitated briefly before blurting out that she'd been thinking about trying to date other people. I told her there were several problems with that idea, the first being that both of us happened to be married. She argued that other married people do it, saying that open marriages make love stronger. I was a bit skeptical, so I asked her where she'd heard that. She said Marcy and Herb, who she said have an open marriage and that it makes their relationship stronger. I didn't think she was telling the truth, so I suggested she look it up on Google. She seemed a bit shocked, but she sat down next to me while I opened my laptop and typed in how many people have open marriages. She saw that less than 1% of Americans have open marriages, according to a survey. I checked a few other links and got the same result, less than 1%. She seemed to have expected something different, saying it was still a significant number. I said I thought it was more like 3 million. She disagreed, saying that many children are married, open or otherwise, and suggesting we take a different approach. I typed in how many Americans expect their partners to be faithful and found out that more than 95% of Americans expect fidelity. I asked her what she thought that meant. She said it meant that most people aren't very open. I was surprised to find out that there are so few people with alternative lifestyles. I hear about it all the time. I wonder how many of those open marriages end in divorce despite her reluctance. I insisted on finding out how many open marriages end in divorce. The answer revealed that 92% of open marriages end in divorce in 5 years or less. I analyzed the statistics. There are less than 1% of Americans in an open marriage. That means that out of 1 million people, there are fewer than 10, so 92% of open marriages end in divorce. That means that out of that 10, out of the 10,000, 8,000 don't end in divorce in 5 years. That's 8,000 out of 1 million. I asked Amanda to crunch the numbers and consider the odds of success for an open marriage. Especially when 92% of 1% fail, she admitted that the chances weren't great. I pointed out that the few successful ones are those where both parties are willing. I directed her to the screen, emphasizing that 100% of marriages where one party is coerced into it fail. I made it clear that our situation would fall into that category since I wasn't willing to participate. I explained how my feelings of resentment, competitiveness, jealousy, insecurity, betrayal, and lack of security would impact us if I were to allow this. I expressed that the only reason I would endure such painful absurdity is if I were desperate to keep her, but I reassured her that I'm not that desperate. I mentioned that other women are. I told her that I was attracted to her, and I mentioned an encounter from the previous night. I said that if I were a pathetic loser or a sick individual, I might be interested in playing her game, but I clarified that I'm not that man. I made it clear that I would prefer her to shoot me in the head than break my heart. Amanda weakly responded that she didn't think everything on the internet could be believed. I acknowledged her point, stating that a good bit of it was probably misinformation. I also pointed out that a lot of the information out there is misleading, especially the part about open marriages. I asked her to think about whether she should believe everything Marcy told her, given Marcy's history of multiple divorces. When Amanda didn't know about Marcy's husband, I pressed further and found out that Marcy had been divorced 4 times. I was pretty shocked. I told Amanda that she was taking marriage advice from someone who'd been divorced 4 times. I said he was a time waster, but she said he was a great guy and that Marcy and Herb had a strong marriage. I was pretty disgusted, so I asked Amanda where she got all this information from. She said Marcy talked about it all the time. I also found out that Marcy and Herb hardly spoke to each other, spending their time trying to engage in closeness activities with their friends. I was pretty frustrated, so I asked Amanda how she thought this situation would end. She said our sex life had been a bit stale lately. I told her I'd been happy with it. I also said her desire to play games had made things weird. I mentioned the last time and how she'd climaxed half a dozen times. I asked if those were Marcy's ideas. She said they were. I reacted strongly, expressing disbelief and frustration. I said our marriage was strong and rejected the idea. She said it could be good and exciting. We share experiences. I responded, calling it a nightmare and challenging her claim about men's fantasies, suggesting she Google it. I made it clear that any involvement in such matters would mean the end of our relationship. Amanda looked shocked and sought clarification on what Wither meant. She questioned if it meant divorce and expressed disappointment, believing our marriage meant more. I echoed her disappointment, expressing doubt about the strength of our marriage based on her discussion of such matters. I told her that her discussing such matters made me think our marriage didn't matter much to her. I asked what she'd tell our daughters if we split up. I said that it wouldn't be because I couldn't accept her having other relationships. I said that the truth would be that she didn't love their father enough to keep her marriage vows and ensure a loving home for them. I said that she was putting her desires before the well-being of our family. As our anger grew, she said it was inevitable, but I didn't accept that. I told her it wouldn't work and that our marriage wouldn't survive her getting involved with someone else. I said I'd get a lawyer if she went through with it. I gave her 2 options: forget everything for a quick divorce or schedule therapy sessions to understand her irrational behavior. I wasn't convinced that counseling would work. I thought her actions were a big mistake that would make everyone miserable. I said her ideas were influenced by Marcy and that positive outcomes were unlikely. I made it clear that I wouldn't just sit back and let it happen. It was a difficult situation for everyone involved. I asked her about her plans and challenged her actions. She taunted me, insisting on her freedom and claiming I couldn't stop her. She argued that I wouldn't divorce her out of fear of losing too much and threatened to take the girls in the house, leaving me with alimony. I told her I'd pay child support, but I urged her to think about the situation and not do anything foolish despite her claims of love. I resisted her proposal, emphasizing the potential excitement she suggested would only lead to risks and downsides. I stood firm, expressing the gravity of the situation. And she wanted me to give it a try, but I said no. She stood up, came over to my chair, and tried to embrace and kiss me. I pushed her hands away, stood up, and said, "I need to think about this. I'll let you know what I decide." I didn't need time to think. I needed to get my strategy together. She was probably right about the complexities of divorcing her. The whole system is messed up. I needed to make some moves. I left her, went to the master bedroom, and locked the door. After spending 30 minutes on the computer and 10 on the phone, I had a financial plan. The problem was the girls under Georgia. In the state of Georgia, where we lived in Atlanta, children over 14 get to choose their custodial parent. I was confident about Audra, my daddy's princess. Olivia loved me, but she also held her mother in high regard. I doubted Audra would go with Amanda, and I hoped Olivia wouldn't want to be separated from her sister. I was betting that if I could make them aware of Amanda's plans and how she intended to use them as leverage for this open marriage, they would want nothing to do with her. It was cynical, and I hated every thought I was having, but I wasn't the one changing the rules. If Amanda had come to me before our marriage and expressed her desire to remain faithful for 19 years and then explore other relationships, would I have married her? Absolutely not. I would have left immediately. She knew it, and she would have done the same. She wanted to change the rules and force me into compliance, resorting to extortion tactics. The conversation took place 2 nights later with Amanda. I began by offering an apology, which she wasn't willing to accept. I asked her about her decision to see a therapist and engage in marriage counseling, given that she denied having any issues and blamed me for planning to be with other men. I pointed out the contradiction, but she insisted she wasn't planning anything specific, just suggesting we have the option if it came up. In response, I shared a different perspective, revealing that I had opportunities to cheat occasionally over the years, but resisted due to a commitment. I told her that I had a plan of loyalty in marriage and that I thought we should plan for a successful marriage. I also said that I was concerned about how our promises to each other, our children, and even to God would be affected. She got really angry and said that I was wrong. She also said that she would get custody of the kids and that I would never see them again. She said that she would make visitations difficult and that I shouldn't say anything to them. After the exchange, she gave me the evil eye, stormed off, and made enough noise for anyone on the stairs to hear a couple of faint gasps and a muffled sob. When I reached the stairs, the girls were gone. I went to Audra's room and then down the hall to Olivia's room, where I heard hushed voices. I knocked on the door, and when Olivia answered, I told her I wanted to come in. She opened the door, and it was clear that they'd both been crying. I went in and gave them both a hug, saying I was sorry they'd had to see what was going on. I told them I thought they wouldn't believe me if they heard the conversation. I told them I didn't think they should blame themselves, and Olivia said it wasn't my fault. She said she'd been unsure at first, but now understood the situation. Audra was still unsure, and asked how I could do such a thing to her and to them. I said I didn't know the exact motivation, but that Amanda had been influenced by negative influences at work and had made a firm decision to go through with it. I also told them about my unsuccessful attempt to dissuade her and mentioned her lack of concern. I'm concerned about her well-being. Audra asked if Amanda was unwell, and I said I didn't know what was going on with her. I suggested therapy and marriage counseling, but Amanda wasn't interested. Audra asked what they should do, and I said to wait it out for now. I explained my plan to wait until Amanda was ready. I'd stopped expecting her to go on a date. We'd be ready to leave before then, and I wasn't sure she'd be willing to listen, even if I tried to talk her out of it. I asked them both if they were on board with my decision or if they wanted to stick with their mom. Audra exchanged glances with her sister before saying, "No, Dad, we're going with you." My heart lifted, finding solace in the support of my children after 19 years of disappointment. Over the next 2 months, Amanda and I barely communicated, assuming roles of distant roommates who didn't have much affection for each other. The spare bedroom became hers. I was sharing a room with Amanda while she was in our old shared space, even though I tried to chat with her and tell her not to go ahead with her plan. We didn't get on at all one evening when we were working in the garden together. I asked her about her plan and if she thought our marriage would really work. She was looking for the passionate lovemaking she had envisioned. She wanted to know if the situation was as exciting and fulfilling as she had anticipated. When she glanced at me, I noticed a hint of doubt in her eyes, which quickly turned into anger. She snapped back, saying that the situation was a result of my behavior. I told my wife I didn't think it was a good idea to get involved with anyone else. She said I was the one at fault and that I needed to think about the positive aspects of the situation. According to her, everything could be perfect. If I let go of my stubborn pride, I had to think about the idea of perfection and who it would be ideal for. The current situation wasn't perfect and certainly not favorable for me. I challenged her assertion that she loved me more, emphasizing that my love for her was expressed through granting her freedom. While I was still committed to the relationship, I saw her desire to explore and push boundaries as selfish rather than an expression of love. I made it clear that my love for her was reflected in my decision not to engage in relationships with others. I asked her if she truly loved me, and if she did, she would do the same. I asked her when she'd stopped loving me. She said she loved me more than ever. I said I didn't believe her. I said her actions felt like she was driving a stake into my heart. She got really angry. She said she was going to a club with a colleague, Bill White, on Friday night. She said I should come with them, that it would be a great experience. I didn't really feel like going, but I agreed anyway, since she was going to do it anyway. She rushed across the garden and gave me a big hug, saying thank you for going along with her plan. I was already feeling pretty uncomfortable. I was really struggling with the situation, so I thought I'd give C a call. She was pretty angry when she found out about the plan. She said she had no idea she was being set up to be with me when Mandy invited her to go clubbing with Bill White. The number she'd given me was a slang number, and she said she'd confront Mandy about it. I asked her to trust me and said I needed her help in this critical moment, as I was planning to leave Mandy. She was initially distrustful, but after calming her down, I explained my plan to play along with the situation and asked her to help me. When she went home with me, she paused for a moment before asking what I had in mind. She laughed and questioned the sincerity of my plan, expressing doubt that it might be a devious plot to get her into my house. I was amused and admitted that it indeed was such a plan. I clarified that I needed her assistance in moving the girls to I told her I needed her to help me move the girls to my new place while I got our stuff from the house. She was surprised but said she'd help. She was really nice and friendly throughout the week leading up to Friday. On Friday, I reminded her again before I left for work that she was sure about her decision and said she could still change her mind. I reminded her of the fun we'd had together, but she was still set on going ahead with the plan. She thanked me for going along with her idea and said she'd talk to me about it later if she needed to. She danced her way out of the bedroom, saying it would be the best night yet. I thought, let's get through this day. CBRA stopped by on Friday evening. Amanda was absolutely stunning. She was cute, petite, and slender with a cute face that belonged on a teenager. CBRA was a teenager in a league of her own. She was tall with a bubble butt, which is a pretty rare sight. Amanda was a bit flat-backed. CBRA was wearing a short, tight red sheath dress with sequins, looking stunning. I was dressed in a sports coat, black pants, and a ribbed t-shirt. She was wearing a shirt under her coat when she came in. She joked that I was trying to seduce her. I told her it was just business that night and that I had other plans. She was sorry she missed out, saying she was wearing a thong because she thought I'd like it. I asked her to show me, and I pulled her closer, lifting her dress up her legs. Amanda had a great figure and warned me she might come in at any moment, but I told her I needed to show her I was playing along. We laughed together as I carried on teasing her, but then Amanda suddenly came into the room. We were both surprised, but Bra quickly adjusted her dress. Amanda smiled and said we were starting early. That evening, I responded with a playful suggestion that she and Bill should be the ones getting a room. Amanda smirked at us, picked up her clutch, and we headed out for the night. Bill met us at the club. I don't think the evening started the way he'd expected. I shook his hand and just crushed it. I've been powerlifting for years, and one thing I've learned is that if you lift without straps, it gives you quite a grip. I could see him start to go weak in the knees, and I let him go. You could tell he wanted to whimper and nurse his hand, but he was too macho to do that. He was one of those pretty boys. Have you ever noticed that as men approach what some women would call ideal, the likelihood of their being a hairdresser or a Scientologist goes up to near infinity? I was watching Bill and I made a connection with Tom Cruise. I was curious, so I asked him if he was a hairdresser. He laughed and said no, that hairdressers are mostly gay. I acknowledged this and then I asked him about L. Ron Hubbard. I told him I was testing a theory and that I had been a Scientologist for 6 years. He seemed ready to laugh, but then he got angry. I told him about L. Ron Hubbard and how I'd been involved with Scientology for 6 years. I said I was testing a theory and that I'd heard it before. Zebra was on the verge of choking and seemed ready to burst into laughter. I glanced at Amanda, who was visibly angry. I realized I might have shared too many private theories with Zebra. I decided to change the subject. Zebra suggested finding a booth and marched away with a tense posture, with Bill trailing behind her at a safe distance. Once he was out of earshot, CBRB started laughing, and I joined in. I said, "You're a mean man, Corwin." "Yeah, well, this is a hell of a night," he replied. He encouraged her to pull herself together and act like she was seducing me. On our way back, I asked Zebra if she was ready for the big show. She looked up at me with those big, expressive eyes. They seemed to convey that this wasn't just a game for her. They were so intense, so radiant. Brown and I found ourselves falling into their depths. I noticed those full, lush lips slightly part, and her petite, pointed tongue moistening them. I couldn't resist. I had to taste her. It exceeded all my expectations and more. Suddenly, I heard a noise, and Amanda and Mr. Bill were sliding back into the booth. "Oh no," I said, trying to sound like a character from Saturday Night Live. "Look who's back." Zebra got the joke and so did Amanda, but Mr. Bill didn't get it. He just sat there, looking confused. Then he started laughing, but it was a kind of chuckle, like he was saying, "Don't do anything mean to me." Amanda's face changed, puffing up like a puffer fish, and the smug smirk disappeared. I told them that CBR and I were planning to leave. I suggested they have fun, and Amanda showed us to the door. She asked me how I was doing. I told her I'd been acting like an idiot earlier and I wasn't okay. I asked her to leave with me. I suggested going home and trying to work things out. I warned her that if she stayed it would be a permanent decision. She was excited and said it would be great for us. She told me to go and enjoy myself. She encouraged me to enjoy myself and told me it would be awesome. I retorted, implying her interest in Mr. Bill, not me, and stated that we were leaving. She grabbed my arm, insisting it would be a great experience and emphasizing that CBRA was interested in me. I questioned if she was spending the night with him, teasing about his stamina. She paused, mentioning she might get home around midnight. She was planning to spice things up with Mr. Bill. I slapped myself on the forehead, remembering their plans. I told her to be quiet if CRA and I were still engaged. When she returned, she kissed me. I hope she enjoyed it. I knew it would be the last one. I left and got into the car, where CBA was waiting. She was waiting. She asked if I was sure about my decision, considering my long marriage. I sighed and said I was sure. She commented on my calm demeanor, expressing surprise at my lack of distress. I explained that I'd run out of emotional energy, having been upset for a long time. I clarified that I was now just tired and sick. I told her I'd shed countless tears over it all, but that time had passed and it was now time to move on. I suggested we go and get the girls. When we arrived, we noticed the moving truck already being loaded. The girls were busy carrying their clothes downstairs and packing them in large plastic tubs. As for furniture, we only took the essential items with us, like the bed from the master suite, the girls' beds, their TVs and electronics, and the big screen we'd replaced 6 months ago with an even larger one when the girls finished packing. I took them in my car and they drove to our new place, which was as far away from the old one as we could get while still staying in the same school district. It was in the same school district. The guys had finished packing, so I took a quick look around. It seemed empty and silent, with only the ghosts of 19 years lingering. I removed my wedding ring and placed it on the kitchen table, along with my cell phone. The girls' phones were already there, which meant it was time to leave. I felt a sense of melancholy. I was leaving with a whimper, throwing a few petty jabs at Amanda and Mr. Bill. I was walking away from 19 years that had been pretty damn good. Oh well, stuff happens. I locked up, loaded my tools from the garage into the back of my truck and left. The girls were excited about the new place, especially with its backyard pool. I suggested we wait until the next day to try it out. I asked Audra if she liked it. She said she didn't know what it meant, but it sounded positive. CBRA was still looking amazing, but even if she had been Jennifer Lawrence in the flesh, I was just tired. I don't mean that I prefer Jennifer Lawrence to CBRA, but you know what I mean. I think she sensed that. She gave me a dazzling smile, a quick peck on the cheek, and then she was gone. The lingering scent of her perfume was the only reminder that she had been there. We went to bed, and I actually slept pretty well. I got up, made coffee, and the girls joined me after a while. We had a Danish Kringle and chocolate. They had milk for breakfast and watched cartoons on TV until noon. Then, 2 gorgeous little bundles of energy were splashing in the pool while I lounged and observed. I wasn't really paying attention, though, wondering what Mandy was doing by now. She'd likely be frantic, calling everyone she could think of to try to figure out what had happened. I knew she'd have a hard time finding us. I wasn't working, I'd sold the business and done well out of it. The girls weren't in school, it was summer vacation. We weren't going anywhere except to the grocery store, and we walked or took a bus there. The truck was parked in the garage. I was sure she had the police looking for us, but not having a car would make that difficult. It was a problem for them because the only way she could reach us was electronically. She flooded our inboxes with messages, so I messaged the girls whenever they signed onto social media and sent tweets and messages on Instagram. We read them but didn't respond, and she had to find us the hard way. I thought she would eventually look for me, so I made sure she could. She had work and bills to pay. I, on the other hand, wasn't making any payments, and I knew she would quickly fall behind. We had significant equity in the house, and losing it wouldn't be something she'd want. About 3 weeks later, a private detective approached me in the grocery store. He inquired about my identity, to which I responded that my wife, he said, he'd found me and was going to tell her where I was. He even suggested I give her a call and threaten her. He said he'd charge me with stalking if he saw me again. When I told him to go away, I meant it. I wasn't going to reach out to her. It turned out I didn't have to. The police showed up and Mandy had told them I'd kidnapped the girls. I was accused of kidnapping the girls. I was asked to go to the station, but I refused. They arrested me and took me downtown. The girls went in another car. When we reached the station, Amanda was there. She tried to hug the girls, but they pushed her away. A woman came to get them, along with Amanda. They went into one room, and I went into another. The police started questioning me. I told them everything. I showed them my ID, which had my driving license on it. I told them I wanted to remain silent and speak to a lawyer. They stopped questioning me, and I heard one of them say I was getting a lawyer. They gave me a phone, and I called John Trimble. He arrived in 45 minutes, just as we'd planned. It took about 3 hours to get everything sorted. The girls said they were with me willingly and denied any kidnapping. They refused to speak to their mother. John took over from there, pointing out the absence of a court order on custody. He said that under Georgia law, both parents were considered equal candidates for custody and that children over 14 could choose the parent with whom they wanted to live. Ultimately, they had no choice but to let us go. CBR walked. They came out with us, and Amanda followed behind, begging the girls to talk to her. They got in Craig's car and drove away, leaving us in the parking lot. Amanda was crying and looked like she was in a bad way. She turned to me and fell to her knees. I reminded her that I'd already asked her not to mess around with Mr. Bill, but she hadn't listened, so why should I? She kept begging me not to treat her this way. I told her I'd talk, and I expressed my sorrow. I asked her where she wanted to go. She asked to go home, saying she didn't want anyone to see her like this. I suggested going to my home, as I had no interest in going to hers and didn't know who she'd been involved with there. She seemed disappointed, but she nodded and agreed to go to my home. She said, "Okay, Corwin. Whatever you want. It's your home too." I didn't argue with her. She suggested that she ride with me, but I declined, saying I'd call a cab instead. She asked if I'd ride with her, but I said I'd call a cab instead. She followed me home, knowing the girls were with Zebra and spending the night. I welcomed Amanda in and got her a coffee. We sat at the bar, and there was an awkward silence. It hadn't been like this between us since our third date, but it sure was now. After a while, she asked what I wanted, and I said if I'd mentioned wanting anything. I asked what she needed to do to get me to come home and see the girls. I said I had no control over her seeing them, it was their choice. She said I poisoned the girls against her and suggested Marcy might have told me about it. I asked if Marcy was the oracle of all wisdom. She repeated her question, asking what I wanted. I said the funny thing was I hadn't said a word to the girls about her. The only thing I told them was that I was leaving and they needed to decide who they wanted to live with. The only thing I told them was that I was leaving and they needed to decide who they wanted to live with. When she pressed on, wondering who had told them, I revealed that she was the one who had told them. She was confused and asked when she would have said anything. I reminded her of the night in the living room when she threatened me. I also pointed out that the girls were sitting on the stairs overhearing every word she said. Her face went pale, and she started sobbing and couldn't continue. I told her the girls thought she'd poisoned their perception, and I agreed. Her pleading was pitiful, like mine. I responded callously, saying I was indifferent to the situation with the girls. I told her she'd messed it up and needed to fix it. When she asked what could be done, I suggested she file for divorce. She said she didn't want to. She wanted a divorce, but she just wanted me to come home. I said that I considered myself already at home, and that I didn't live with her. She apologized and said it was a mistake to force me into the situation. She also expressed regret. She asked for forgiveness and said she would go to a marriage counselor or a therapist. In response, I said that the problem wasn't that I didn't want it, but that she did. I told her that she should file for divorce. I told her that if she didn't do it within a few months, I'd take the initiative myself. I made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with her, given that our relationship was beyond repair. She was angry and called me a fool, saying I'd taken all our money by selling the business and emptying our bank accounts. I defended my actions, saying I'd sold the business at a loss and taken only what I'd earned. I also said I had stashed all that money away in an offshore account, as I knew it was crucial to do so before the divorce proceedings began. The records showed that I sold the business to a Danish company for less than what I owed in taxes. I had overpaid the IRS a lot with the extra funds held to cover future tax bills. Our brokerage accounts were still open. I hadn't touched it, although I knew I'd have to give half of it to the girls to secure their financial future. I'd set up a trust for them to make sure they'd be comfortable for the next 3 months. I'd been going to different grocery stores, Walmarts, and convenience stores in town using my debit card. I made sure to ask for cash back every time the machine prompted me to do so. I was getting cash from different stores in town, from $160 to $320 each time. 3 people were involved in each transaction. This strategy could quickly get me a lot of money. The transactions were real, and I had a lot of cash stored in an old chest in a storage building, ready to use when it was safe. I told Amanda she could have the house and the money in it. I suggested that she could sell the house, get out of the mortgage, and manage for a while. I also suggested that she might want to think about moving in with Mr. Bill. I was surprised when she said she didn't know if he was married. I pointed out that her desire for an open marriage indicated a lack of concern about his marital status. I advised her to move on and file for divorce. I went over to the door and Amanda followed me. She was upset and was shaking her hands and crying. She stopped at the door, looked up at me, and asked me to tell the girls that she loved them and apologized. I said I would and that I wasn't giving up. I also said that I wasn't filing for divorce because I didn't want one. She asked me why I wasn't open-minded. I told her that I wanted her to come back home. She said that I seemed to lack open-mindedness. She was really understanding and said she was sorry that things hadn't gone better. She said she still loved me and that she was going to keep trying. I was too tired to argue with her, so I let her leave and then I called CBRA. She came over and the girls were home, but she didn't come in. Audra and Olivia were pretty upset and even angrier with their mother than before, if that was possible. I knew they wouldn't be at all receptive to the message from Amanda, so I decided to just sit on it for a while. 2 days later, Amanda showed up around 4:30 with dinner. She'd made chicken tetrazzini with French-cut green beans and a big basket of garlic bread. Olivia opened the door. Amanda tried to hug her and got a stiff arm in return. Amanda greeted me, addressing me as baby, and Olivia called out for my attention. I heard Amanda expressing she apologized, said she loved me, and that she missed me. However, Olivia abruptly shut her down, refused to hear any of it, and told her to stay away. Amanda was visibly shaken, and as she nearly collapsed, I rescued the basket of food she was carrying and took her to the sofa. She sat down and buried her face in her hands, sobbing about how much she was hated. I acknowledged that what she did to the girls was hurtful and doubted that they would trust her again, despite sympathizing with her pain. I emphasized that rebuilding any relationship with the girls would be her responsibility, not theirs or mine. She mentioned making dinner and looked at me pleadingly, despite recognizing that she brought it upon herself. I decided to help. I offered to talk to the girls while she found the dishes in the kitchen upstairs. The girls were furious, expressing disbelief. When Amanda showed up and thought that feeding them would make everything okay, Audra was really angry. She said that Amanda had destroyed their family. I told Audra that Amanda had started a fight and now had to deal with the consequences. I also told the girls that I still loved them. I gave them the choice to stay with me or go with their mom. I said that I would always love them. Olivia didn't want to eat with her mom. She said she'd rather hang herself. The girls said they wanted to stay with me, so we shared a hug. I suggested going down to eat with their mother and trying to be civil. Olivia asked if I wanted them to, and I said I'd like them to be civil but avoid mean comments. They agreed to be civil but said they'd still convey their feelings. The dinner turned out to it was really awkward. Amanda tried to chat with the girls, but they just gave her CT replies. After we'd eaten, we cleaned up and packed Amanda's dishes. She was about to leave when she asked Audra for a hug. Audra said she didn't want one because Amanda wasn't her mother. Both girls went to their rooms without saying anything else. Amanda was really upset, and it took her about 30 minutes to calm down enough to leave, even though she felt sorry for her. I didn't take any responsibility for the situation. I was happy with how things turned out and enjoyed every minute of it. She kept coming over about once a week, and the girls kept ruining her hopes. She didn't file for divorce and kept trying to convince me to move back in with her. After 6 months, I filed for divorce. I think Amanda finally realized that we were through. The court gave her visitation rights, but there were always obstacles to getting visits to happen. I certainly hoped she found someone who suited her open life. I sure had. I am still unmarried, and my life is dedicated to my girls.